$10,000. Cash. That's what they paid. Not to a random person on the internet, not to some amateur with candles and crystals. They went deeper. They found someone with a reputation, someone whose name gets whispered in circles you don't want to know about, a professional, someone who's never failed a contract. They handed over everything, your full name, your brush date, your mother's name, photos of you smiling, hair from your brush they stole months ago. They sat across from her in a room that smelled like sage and something darker. And they made one request: destroy this person completely, make them lose everything, make them disappear from relevance, make them wish they were never born. The witch took the money, she took the photos. She studied your face under candlelight and nodded slowly like she'd seen 1,000 faces before yours. Your enemies left that room feeling victorious. They celebrated over drinks, toasting to your upcoming downfall, checking their phones every hour, waiting for news of your collapse. 3 days passed, then 4, then a week. Nothing happened to you, but something happened to them. A phone call, the witch's voice on the other end, cold and flat, with words they never expected to hear. I'm returning your money, all of it. I can't complete this contract. And when they asked why, when they demanded an explanation, she said something that shattered their confidence forever. This person is protected by something I will not challenge. Someone in that group grabbed the phone and shouted, "We paid you $10,000. You have a reputation. You've never refused work. What do you mean you can't touch them?" And the witch, this woman who's broken families and destroyed lives for money, who's never shown mercy or fear in 20 years of dark work, said 5 words that ended the conversation. "I value my life more." The line went dead. The money was wired back within the hour, and your enemies sat there in silence, realizing they didn't just waste $10,000. They discovered something far more terrifying. You are untouchable. Not by luck, not by accident, but by design. Before we go deeper into why professional practitioners refuse contracts on chosen ones, I need you to do something right now. Hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and drop the number 777 in the comments if you've ever felt attacks fail against you without understanding why. Because what I'm about to reveal isn't just a story, it's the blueprint of how spiritual protection operates at levels most people never see. This isn't entertainment. This is confirmation. You're not imagining the shift. You're not crazy for sensing you're different, and you're definitely not alone. Now let's break down exactly what happened, why that witch returned the money, and what this means for everyone who thought they could destroy you. They didn't pull $10,000 out of nowhere. This wasn't impulsive. This was planned, calculated, and funded collectively. 3 of them contributed $3,000 each. 1 person put in the remaining $1,000. They created a group chat just to coordinate the payment. Some withdrew cash from ATMs over several days to avoid suspicion from their partners. Others lied about what they needed the money for, made up fake emergencies, borrowed from family members who'll never know the real reason. This wasn't pocket change, this was sacrifice. This was them liquidating savings, cancelling trips, putting off bills, just to gather enough money to pay someone to ruin you. Think about the psychology of that. Think about how much hatred it takes to coordinate a $10,000 attack. That's not casual dislike. That's not simple jealousy. That's obsession. That's the kind of rage that keeps people awake at night, that consumes their thoughts during the day, that makes them willing to go into debt just to watch you suffer. They convinced themselves it was worth it. They told each other that once you were destroyed, once you were broken and silent and removed from their awareness, the money would feel like the best investment they ever made. They fantasized about your collapse, the way other people fantasize about vacations. This was their dream purchase. But here's what exposes their stupidity. They went to a professional because amateurs failed. This wasn't their first attempt. They'd already tried cheaper methods. They'd already done their little basement rituals. They'd already burned your photos and buried your name and chanted under full moons, and nothing worked. Nothing even scratched you. So they upgraded. They thought bigger budget equals bigger results. They thought a professional could do what their amateur attempts couldn't. They believed that money could buy your destruction. But what they didn't understand, what their arrogance blinded them to, is that some targets aren't about skill or price. Some people exist in a frequency that makes them immune to the entire industry. The witch knew that within seconds. Professional practitioners aren't like the amateurs you see on social media promising results in 3 days. Real workers can read energy. They can see protection before they even start working. They look at a photo and sense what's wrapped around that person's spirit. And the moment she looked at your face, she saw something that made her reconsider everything. She saw layers of protection she didn't recognize. She saw an energy signature that didn't match anything in her experience. She saw what looked like a seal, a mark, a cosmic stamp that essentially said, touch this one and face consequences you can't afford. That's when the calculation changed. That's when $10,000 stopped looking like profit and started looking like a down payment on her own destruction. Professional dark workers operate on risk assessment. They don't take every contract that comes their way. They evaluate targets the same way assassins evaluate security systems. Can I get in? Can I do the damage? Can I get out without consequence? Most people are easy targets. No protection, no awareness, no spiritual infrastructure. Their energy is wide open, vulnerable, accessible. Breaking them is like breaking into an unlocked house. Simple, fast, profitable. But then there are the others. The ones with guards they didn't hire. The ones with protection they didn't build. The ones who don't even know they're shielded but walk around untouchable anyway. You're one of those. When that witch looked at your photo, she didn't just see your face. She saw the architecture of your spiritual defense system. She saw ancestors standing behind you like soldiers. She saw energetic barriers she couldn't identify or penetrate. She saw something that looked almost like a contract, like you're under protection that's legally binding in realms she operates in. And most disturbing to her, she saw awareness, not from you necessarily, but from whatever's protecting you. She felt observed. She felt like her intention to harm you was noticed the moment it formed. That's the part that scared her, not the protection itself, but the intelligence behind it. Something was watching, something knew she was there, something communicated non-verbally that proceeding would be a fatal mistake. Dark practitioners talk among themselves. They have networks, forums, warning systems. There are names that circulate in those communities, not the names of the protected people, but descriptions. The one with the golden shield, the one surrounded by ancestors, the one who reflects everything back. And once someone gets identified in those circles as untouchable, the word spreads fast. It's professional courtesy, it's survival. Because when a practitioner attacks someone truly protected and the spell rebounds, it doesn't just fail. It destroys the practitioner. Career-ending injuries, sudden illness, financial collapse, death in the family. Dark workers know that every curse they send out has their signature on it, and if it bounces back, it comes home with precision. Your enemies didn't know any of this. They thought hiring a professional meant guaranteed results. They thought money bought certainty. But what they actually did was force a professional to declare publicly by refusing the contract that you are protected at a level that even experts won't challenge. That refund wasn't just returned money, it was a statement. It was testimony. It was a professional admitting, on record, that you are beyond her reach. And now your enemies have to sit with that information. They have to process the fact that someone who's destroyed countless lives took one look at you and said no. That's not a reflection of her weakness. That's a confirmation of your protection. And that confirmation is going to haunt them forever. Money returned is a message that echoes. When that $10,000 hit their accounts again, it wasn't relief they felt. It was terror. Because in that moment, they realized they weren't dealing with someone who got lucky. They were dealing with someone who exists under protection they can't comprehend, can't penetrate, can't even approach without risking their own destruction. That refund was the universe speaking directly to them in a language they couldn't ignore. It said, "You've made a mistake. You've targeted someone you shouldn't have. And now you know. The question is, what will you do with that knowledge?" Some of them are in denial. They're telling themselves the witch scammed them, that she was never real, that this whole thing was a con. They're creating alternative explanations to protect their egos from the truth. But deep down, in the quiet moments, they know. They know because nothing else explains the look in the witch's eyes during that phone call. They know because the refund came too fast, too complete, too urgent. Real scammers don't return money. Real scammers make excuses, promise results are coming, string people along. This was immediate rejection. This was someone backing away from a live wire they almost touched. And that urgency, that fear in a professional's response tells them everything they need to know about you. Others in the group are panicking. They're the ones who understand spiritual law enough to know what a refused contract means. They know that when a practitioner identifies someone as protected and refuses to proceed, there's usually a reason that goes beyond difficulty. There's active danger. There's rebound potential. And they're starting to wonder if just planning the attack, just gathering the money, just speaking your name with murderous intent was enough to activate consequences. They're checking their lives for cracks. They're noticing small misfortunes and wondering if they're connected. They're lying awake, replaying that phone call, hearing those 5 words over and over. I value my life more. And they're realizing those words weren't about money. They were about survival. Then there's the one who's truly terrified, the one who coordinated everything, the one who found the witch, made the appointment, handed over the package. That person feels marked now. Because in spiritual warfare, the ringleader carries the heaviest karma. The others participated, but this one initiated, this one led. And if there's any consequence coming, any rebound from even attempting this attack, it's going to hit them first and hardest. They're watching their life with paranoid attention now, waiting for something to break, knowing that cosmic justice doesn't need them to believe in it, to activate. And every day that nothing happens, the tension builds, because the wait is worse than the hit. Not knowing when the consequences will arrive is torture that no curse could match. Here's what amplifies their fear beyond rational levels. You had no idea this was happening. You didn't know they pooled $10,000. You didn't know they found a witch. You didn't know a professional studied your photo in a dark room with intention to destroy you. You were probably sleeping peacefully the night she tried to connect to your energy and felt the wall she couldn't cross. You were probably laughing with friends the day she made that phone call to return their money. You were living your life, completely unaware of the war being waged against you in shadows. And you were protected anyway. That's the part that breaks their minds. They thought you needed to know to defend yourself. They thought awareness was necessary for protection. But you're proof that some shields operate automatically. Some protection doesn't require your conscious participation. You didn't have to cast a counter spell because you didn't know there was a spell to counter. You didn't have to pray for defense because you didn't know you were under attack. You just existed, and your existence alone, your frequency alone, your spiritual signature alone was enough to make a professional practitioner refuse money to avoid touching you. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's infrastructure. That's spiritual architecture that was built before you were born, activated when you were chosen, and operates whether you're aware of it or not. Think about how powerless that makes them feel. They spent months planning. They spent thousands of dollars funding. They found someone with real power and real reputation. They did everything right according to the rules of spiritual warfare, and it meant nothing. It accomplished nothing. It didn't even register on your radar. You didn't feel weaker. You didn't sense danger. You didn't have nightmares or unexplained anxiety. Your life continued uninterrupted while theirs fell apart in panic and confusion. That imbalance, that complete disparity in impact, proves something they don't want to admit. You're not on their level. You never were. You exist in a protected class they don't have access to, can't understand, and definitely can't touch. Your ignorance of the attack is actually evidence of your protection's sophistication. Low-level shields make you aware of threats so you can consciously defend. High-level protection handles threats before they reach your awareness. You don't feel the attacks because they're neutralized before they get close enough to disturb your peace. It's like having security that stops intruders 3 blocks away instead of at your door. You never hear the confrontation because it happens so far from your actual life. And that's the mark of true protection. Not the kind you have to maintain consciously, but the kind that operates in realms you don't even access. The kind that makes professionals refuse to engage. The kind that returns money with an apology. The kind that makes your enemies realize they're not fighting you. They're fighting forces they can't see, can't name, and definitely can't overcome. Here's something your enemies didn't consider. That witch has a reputation built over decades. People come to her because she delivers results. She's the professional you hire when you absolutely need someone destroyed. Her success rate is what justifies her price. But she just refused your case. She just admitted by returning that money that you are beyond her capability. And that admission doesn't stay private. That admission doesn't stay private. In the underground networks where dark practitioners operate, word spreads instantly. A professional refusing a contract is news. A professional returning money after accepting it? That's a headline. Now your spiritual resume includes a line that most people never earn. Refused by professionals. That's not a badge you can buy or fake. That's cosmic credibility. That's the universe using an enemy's attack to actually upgrade your reputation in realms you didn't know existed. Because now, when someone else in the future considers targeting you, when another enemy thinks about hiring dark work against you, your name might already be flagged. You might already be on the list of people practitioners won't touch. And that's free protection. That's a defensive wall built by your enemy's failed attempt. They paid $10,000 to advertise that you're untouchable. They funded your own protection campaign without realizing it. The witch herself might never take another contract on someone associated with you. Not your family, not your close friends, not anyone in your energetic circle. Because practitioners know that protected people don't exist in isolation. If you're shielded at that level, the people close to you might be too. And she's not risking her safety, her career, or her life to find out. So your protection just expanded by proximity. People around you just became harder to touch because you're in their orbit. That's how protection works at high levels. It doesn't just shield you, it creates a zone of safety around you that others benefit from just by being near you. Your enemies didn't just fail to hurt you. They accidentally made you more powerful. And here's the brutal irony. Your enemies can't even talk about this openly. They can't tell people they hired a witch who refused the job. That makes them look weak and foolish. They can't brag about the $10,000 because it came back with a message of failure. They can't warn other enemies about your protection without admitting they tried to hurt you and failed spectacularly. So they have to sit in silence, holding this information that confirms you're untouchable, unable to share it, unable to use it, just carrying the weight of knowing they lost a war you didn't even know was happening. That silence is a prison, and they're serving a sentence they created. with their own hatred. Some people don't learn. Some enemies are so blinded by rage that they can't accept the message. They got their money back. They got the warning, but instead of retreating, they doubled down. They went looking for someone else, someone less experienced, someone more desperate for money, someone who hasn't learned yet that some targets are untouchable. And they found one. A younger practitioner, hungry for reputation, willing to take the job the professional refused. Your enemies felt hope again. They thought they found a loophole. They thought inexperience meant ignorance of your protection. They paid again. Less this time, because the professional charged premium prices. But still significant. Still sacrifice. Still collective funding. And this time, the practitioner didn't refuse. They took the money, they took the photos, they started the work. Your enemies waited excitedly, checking in daily for updates, refreshing their social media to see signs of your collapse. Days passed, then a week, then 2 weeks, and something happened, but not to you. The young practitioner ended up in the hospital. Sudden illness, no clear diagnosis, organs failing for no medical reason. The doctors called it mysterious. The practitioner's family called it tragic. But your enemies knew. They knew because the illness started the same day the ritual began. They knew because the young practitioner sent one final message before disappearing into intensive care. Whatever you sent me toward came back tenfold. I'm dying, and it's your fault. That's when the real fear set in. That's when they realized the professional wasn't protecting you. She was protecting herself. She knew what would happen if she tried. She'd seen others fall for making the same mistake. And she valued her life too much to test those boundaries. But this younger practitioner, naive and arrogant, thought they were skilled enough to overcome any protection. They learned the truth the hardest way possible. You don't overcome cosmic protection. You don't outsmart forces that operate beyond human magic. You just become another cautionary tale, another name whispered in dark circles as a warning. This is what happens when you ignore the sign. Now your enemies are stuck. They funded 2 attacks. One refused, one rebounded. They're out thousands of dollars, with nothing to show but confirmation that you're more protected than they ever imagined. And they're sitting with guilt now, because that young practitioner is in critical condition, might not survive, and it's because they hired them to attack you. That blood is on their hands, not yours. You still don't know any of this happened. You're still living your life in peace. But they know. They know they caused someone's hospitalization. They know they pushed a naive person into danger that was clearly marked. And they know that every medical bill, every setback in that practitioner's life, every consequence that family faces, it all traces back to them and their obsession with destroying you. That's karma, creating collateral. And they're witnessing it in real time. Let's talk about what $10,000 actually represents. That's not pocket change. For most people, that's several months of rent. That's a used car. That's a medical bill paid off. That's a course or certification that could change their career. That's a small emergency fund that could provide security. That's travel, memories, experiences, investments in their own growth. They had $10,000 liquid. They could have done so much with it, but instead they chose to spend it on your destruction. And they got nothing. Less than nothing. They got confirmation that you're untouchable and they're powerless. Imagine the regret sitting in their chests right now. Every time they think about that money, they're reminded of their failure. Every time they struggle financially, they remember they voluntarily gave away thousands of dollars for a result that never came. Some of them are probably in worse financial positions now than before the attack. Some might have put the money on credit cards, assuming your downfall would be worth the debt. Now they're making monthly payments on a curse that failed. They're literally paying interest on their own failed hatred. That's not just ironic, that's cosmic comedy. That's the universe making them fund their own humiliation on an installment plan. And the worst part? They can't even claim it as a loss. They can't tell anyone why they're suddenly struggling financially. They can't explain why they withdrew their savings. They have to pretend everything's fine while internally crumbling under the weight of their stupidity. Meanwhile, you're thriving. You're building, you're growing, you're using your energy and resources to actually improve your life instead of trying to destroy someone else's. That's the difference between protected and cursed. Protected people invest in their own elevation. Cursed people invest in others' destruction and wonder why their own lives fall apart. Your enemies are learning this lesson the expensive way. Some of them are looking at that returned money now and feeling physically ill. Because it's stained, it's marked. It carries the energy of failed attack, of rejected intent, of cosmic judgment. Spending it feels wrong. Saving it feels like keeping evidence of their crime. They don't know what to do with money that came back as a message of their powerlessness. Some might donate it, trying to cleanse the karma. Some might spend it recklessly, trying to forget what it represents. But that money will always remind them. Every dollar is a receipt that proves they tried to destroy someone the universe protects. And receipts don't expire. Cosmic records don't fade. That transaction is permanent evidence that they declared war on the wrong person and lost before the battle even started. Here's what breaks the logic of people who try to attack chosen ones. They think protection is something you build through rituals, prayers, crystals, and spiritual practice. They think if they just find the right practitioner, the right spell, the right approach, they can overcome any defense. But what they don't understand is that some protection isn't earned. It's assigned. It was placed on you before you were conscious enough to know you needed it. It was activated when your purpose was written. It's woven into the fabric of who you are, not something you wear that can be removed. Attacking you isn't attacking a person with protection. It's attacking protection that happens to look like a person. Think about it like diplomatic immunity. An ambassador doesn't have to fight for their protection. They don't have to prove they deserve it. It comes with the position. It's automatic, legal, and enforced by systems bigger than individual power. You're similar. Whatever role you're playing in the cosmic structure, whatever purpose you're assigned to fulfill, it comes with built-in protection that operates at levels individual practitioners can't touch. That witch didn't refuse because she was weak. She refused because she recognized authority she doesn't have clearance to challenge. She saw diplomatic immunity and knew that attacking would bring consequences from enforcement systems she can't fight. Your enemies thought they were attacking a regular person who'd gotten lucky with some basic protection spells. What they actually encountered was infrastructure. They ran into a defensive system that wasn't built by human hands, that doesn't operate on human rules, and that responds to threats with precision they can't anticipate or counter. It's like the difference between a house alarm and a military base perimeter. One you can potentially disable. The other has layers of defense, automatic responses and backup systems that activate before you even realize you tripped something. You're not a house, you're a base. And your enemies just tried to break in with a crowbar. This is why consistency matters in spiritual warfare. Notice how every attack against you fails. Not some, all, not most, every single one. That's not probability, that's design. That's a system operating exactly as intended. Your enemies might score small, temporary victories that look like success. They might see you struggle and think their curse is working. But zoom out, look at the pattern. You're still here, still rising, still protected, still untouchable in the ways that matter. Every attack ultimately fails. Every practitioner ultimately refuses or rebounds. Every enemy ultimately faces consequences while you ultimately advance. That's not luck repeating. That's law executing. Your enemies are trapped now, and they built the cage themselves. Every person who participated in this attack is now energetically bound to you. Not because you did anything, but because they formed a spiritual contract the moment they conspired with murderous intent. They signed their names to your destruction. They sealed it with money. They activated it with a professional's involvement. And now they're linked to you in a way that ensures they'll witness every blessing that lands in your life, every door that opens, every success that manifests. They can't look away. The obsession that drove them to attack won't let them move on. This is the trap nobody talks about. When you attack someone and fail spectacularly, you don't get to forget and move forward. You become haunted by their success. You become forced audience to their elevation. Every time they level up, you feel it. Every time they celebrate, you see it. Every time they smile, you remember that you paid thousands of dollars to wipe that smile off their face and failed. You become a prisoner of your own hatred, trapped in an obsession that feeds on your misery. And the more they succeed, the more your prison shrinks. The walls close in with every blessing you witness them receive. That's the cosmic joke. The cage they tried to put you in became the cage they're locked in instead. Some of them are checking your social media multiple times a day now, not because they like you, because they need to know if the attack is working. They're analyzing every post, every photo, every caption, looking for signs of decline, but all they see is growth. They see you smiling, they see you thriving. They see you unbothered, untouched, unaware that you're even under attack. And that monitoring, that constant checking, that obsessive surveillance, it's not giving them power, it's draining them. Every time they look at your happiness, they're reminded of their failure. Every notification that you posted something new is a trigger that reopens the wound. They've turned you into a constant source of their own torture. And they can't even talk about it. They can't tell their therapist they're obsessed with someone because they paid a witch to curse them. They can't explain to their partners why they're always checking your profiles. They can't admit to friends that they're losing sleep over someone who doesn't even think about them. So they suffer in isolation, carrying secrets that poison them from the inside, watching you win while they decay. That's the real curse. Not something you cast, something they created for themselves by choosing darkness over light, attack over acceptance, hatred over healing. They're cursed by their own choices, and you're blessed by simply existing in your truth. When that witch said, "I value my life more," she wasn't just protecting herself. She was issuing a warning to everyone involved. She was saying, in professional language, that touching you carries consequences that extend beyond spiritual rebound. It affects physical reality. It impacts lifespan. It alters fate. She's seen what happens to practitioners who ignore the signs and attack protected targets anyway. She's watched colleagues die mysteriously. She's witnessed families crumble. She's seen financial empires collapse overnight. And she's smart enough to recognize the pattern. Some targets are marked, and marked targets are always bait in a trap bigger than the people setting up the attack realize. Think about what that means for your enemies. They're not just dealing with a failed curse, they're standing in the blast radius of something they activated. That professional walked away, but they're still there. They're still connected. They're still energetically tied to the attempt. And if there's a rebound coming, if there's a consequence building, they're first in line to receive it. The practitioner protected herself by refusing, but they didn't refuse. They initiated, they funded, they provided the materials, they spoke the intent. They might not have cast the spell, but they're absolutely part of the spell's failure. And in spiritual law, intention carries the same weight as action. They're liable. Some of them are waiting for something terrible to happen now. They're hyper-aware of every small misfortune, wondering if it's the start of something bigger. A minor car accident becomes a sign. An argument with their spouse becomes a pattern. A financial setback becomes evidence of karmic debt collecting. They're living in anticipation of collapse, and that anticipation is its own form of torture. because whether or not a massive rebound actually comes, the fear of it is already destroying their peace. They're afraid to sleep, afraid to relax, afraid to celebrate anything, because they're waiting for the other shoe to drop. That fear is the first payment. That anxiety is the down payment on consequences they might still be avoiding. But the bill is open. The tab is running, and they know it. Meanwhile, you're still completely unaware. You're sleeping peacefully while they're having nightmares about what they did. You're making plans while they're checking over their shoulders. You're building a future while they're waiting for their past to catch up to them. That imbalance, that complete disparity in psychological states proves once again that you're protected in ways they'll never understand. Your peace isn't ignorance. It's evidence of protection, so complete that threats don't even register on your radar. They're drowning in fear of consequences while you're swimming in blessings you didn't have to fight for. That's not luck. That's cosmic favoritism. That's what happens when the universe has your back so completely that your enemies become their own punishment. Not everyone involved in this attack will experience the same consequences. Cosmic justice isn't one size fits all. It's customized to match the level of involvement, the depth of intention, and the karmic history of each person. The one who initiated everything, who found the witch and organized the funding, they're carrying the heaviest weight. They're the architect. They're the one whose idea this was. And they're going to face consequences that the others might partially avoid. Leadership in darkness comes with solo accountability. You can't hide in a crowd when you're the one who gathered the crowd. Then there are the eager participants, the ones who didn't initiate but jumped at the chance to contribute, the ones who volunteered their $3,000 willingly, maybe even excitedly. They're carrying the curse of active participation. They didn't have to join. Nobody forced them. They saw an opportunity to hurt you and leaped at it. That voluntary engagement, that enthusiastic involvement in your planned destruction, it creates a different type of karmic debt than reluctant participation. They wanted this, they celebrated it, and the universe noted that enthusiasm. Consequences for willing participants look different than consequences for those who were pressured or manipulated into joining. Some people in that group were hesitant. They contributed because they didn't want to be left out, or because they were peer pressured, or because they were afraid to say no. They handed over money even though part of them knew it was wrong. That internal conflict doesn't erase their participation, but it does affect how consequences manifest. They might experience guilt-based consequences, psychological torture instead of physical rebound, relationship deterioration instead of financial collapse. Their punishment is watching what they participated in, knowing they could have stopped it, knowing they chose comfort over courage. That regret is its own curse. It doesn't need external enforcement. And then there's the person who pulled out at the last minute, the one who was going to contribute but changed their mind. Maybe they felt uncomfortable. Maybe they got a warning dream. Maybe their conscience woke up just in time. They're the only one who might escape consequences, but they're not escaping the knowledge. They're not escaping the awareness that they were almost part of something dark that failed spectacularly. They have to live knowing how close they came to being trapped with the others. That near miss, that narrow escape, it might actually save them, but it will haunt them forever. They'll always wonder what would have happened if they'd handed over that money. They'll always know they almost bought a ticket to a disaster they witnessed from the outside. That $10,000 is back in their possession, but it's not the same money anymore. It's evidence, it's marked, it carries frequency of failure, of rejection, of cosmic judgment. And money carries memory. Every dollar that went into that fund to destroy you and came back as a message of their powerlessness is now circulating through their lives like a virus. They're spending it on groceries, bills, gas, and every time they use it, they're reminded. Every time they look at their bank balance and see numbers that include that returned money, they remember what it represents. It's not just cash, It's a receipt from a failed attack. It's proof they declared war on someone untouchable. Some of them can't even spend it. It feels wrong. It feels cursed. They're leaving it in their accounts, letting it sit there like evidence they're afraid to touch. But leaving it doesn't help either. Because now it's just stagnant energy, blocked money that's not flowing, not growing, just existing as a reminder of failure. Some of them might try to cleanse it spiritually, light candles over their bank statements, pray over their debit cards, try to energetically reset the money so it doesn't carry the stain of what they did. But deep down they know you can't cleanse intent. You can't wash off spiritual signatures. That money will always be connected to the moment a professional practitioner returned it with a message, "I will not touch this person." Others are trying to spend it as fast as possible, get it out of their accounts, convert it into objects, erase the evidence by dissipating it. But that doesn't work either, because every purchase made with that money becomes another reminder. That shirt they bought? Funded by the failed attack. That dinner? Paid for with returned curse money. That bill they paid off? Cleared using funds that were supposed to destroy you, but came back as proof of your protection. Everything they buy with it becomes tainted. Everything that money touches carries the story of their humiliation. They can't escape it by spending it, they just spread the reminder across multiple areas of their lives. And the absolute worst part? Some of them are actually worse off financially now than before they tried to attack you. Because while that 10,000 is back in their accounts, they spent money they wouldn't have otherwise spent in preparation for your downfall. They bought celebration drinks, they took time off work to participate in the ritual, they spent money on gas, food, logistics of gatherings. Small amounts individually, but they add up, so they're not actually whole. They're operating at a loss, even though the big money came back. They're financially worse off for trying to hurt you. And that's fitting. That's cosmic mathematics. They invested in darkness and the market crashed. Now they're holding bags of failure, counting losses they can't explain, wondering how trying to destroy someone else ended up destroying their own financial stability. And now, Chosen One, you see the full picture. They gathered their hatred, they pooled their resources, they found a professional with a reputation built on destruction. They handed over $10,000, your photo, your name, your energy signature. They waited for your collapse with champagne ready to celebrate. But the witch took one look at you and saw what they were too blind to see. Protection they couldn't comprehend, authority they couldn't challenge, power they couldn't match. And she returned their money with a warning that shattered their confidence forever. You're not just protected, you're untouchable. You're marked by forces that make professionals refuse payment rather than risk consequences they know they can't survive. You didn't know about any of this. You were living your life, laughing, building, growing, completely unaware that in shadows someone was trying to end you. And your ignorance of the attack is the loudest proof of your protection. Because threats that never reach your awareness were neutralized before they got close. You don't fight battles you don't know about, because something else is fighting them for you. That's not luck. That's infrastructure. That's cosmic security operating at levels your enemies will never understand. They spent thousands. You spent nothing. They failed, you thrived. They're trapped in fear and regret. You're free in peace and purpose. If this message landed in your spirit like confirmation you've been waiting for, if you felt that knowing in your chest that says, "This is my story," then do this right now. Hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, drop 777 in the comments and tell me, have you ever felt protected from attacks you didn't even know were happening? Because this community of chosen ones is growing. And every person who adds their voice makes the frequency stronger. Share this video with someone who needs to understand why their enemies keep failing. Someone who needs confirmation that their protection is real. They tried to buy your destruction. The universe refunded their hatred, and now you're standing here, still breathing, still rising, still protected by forces they'll never overcome. That's not a story. That's your reality. Walk in it. Own it. And remember, some people are too protected to touch. You're one of them.